الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا ما لكم إذا قيل لكم انفروا في سبيل الله اثاقلتم إلى الأرض أرضيتم بالحياة الدنيا من الآخرة فما متاع الحياة الدنيا في الآخرة إلا قليل إلا تنفروا يعذبكم عذابا أليما ويستبدل قوما غيركم ولا تضروه شيئا والله على كل شيء قدير إلا تنصروه فقد نصره الله إذ أخرجه الذين كفروا ثاني اثنين إذ هما في الغار إذ يقول لصاحبه لا تحزن إن الله معنا فأنزل الله سكينته عليه وأيده بجنود لم تروها وجعل كلمة الذين كفروا السفلى وكلمة الله هي العليا والله عزيز حكيم انفروا خفافا وثقالا وجاهدوا بأموالكم وأنفسكم في سبيل الله ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون لو كان عرضا قريبا وسفرا قاصدا لاتبعوك ولكن بعدت عليهم الشقة وسيحلفون بالله لو استطعنا لخرجنا معكم يهلكون أنفسهم والله يعلم إنهم لكاذبون صدق الله العظيم وبلغنا رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. From here to the end of Surah Taubah, most of the ayat relate to the expedition of Tabuk. Pretty much the last expedition, last ghazwa of the Prophet ﷺ's noble life, which occurred after the conquest of Makkah and after the expedition of Hunain, when the Prophet ﷺ and his companions returned to Medina, looking at the victory of the Prophet ﷺ over the Arabian Peninsula, the very adjacent neighbor, which were also this was the Roman Byzantine Empire, and their king was Heraclius at that time, their ruler, their emperor. Syria was a province of that empire at that time, and Syria at that time included what is Jordan now. So Jordan, their borders meet with Saudi now. So Syria was a part of that environment, that empire. So to the north of Medina and a little to the west, there is a place called Tabuk, which was the border town at that time between Arab and the Byzantine Empire, the Roman Empire. So getting news of the victory of Muslims, these Roman Christians, they thought that now we should gather all our force and attack Medina, a hefty, mighty, full-fledged attack to take care of the Muslims before they start attacking and expanding the Muslim government in the north. So their emperor Heraclius had gathered an army, and the news traveled to Medina through the travelers or those traders who used to bring olive oil from Syria and used to trade it in Medina. They told the Prophet ﷺ and the companions that this emperor is gathering an army. So the Prophet ﷺ decided that before they attack us, we will do a preemptive strike. We will gather the army and go and meet that army at the place of Tabuk. This was a time of extreme summer, extreme intense temperature, and the people of Medina mostly relied on their crops of dates. And Hazrat has written that as those people who earn on a monthly basis, they know that their pockets are empty by the end of the month, and they are eagerly awaiting the first of the next month that they get their salaries. Such is the case of the people who depend on their crops or their agriculture, that they have sold the prophets, they have used it, and right on the verge of when the next crop is going to be harvested, they are empty of their pockets and they are eagerly waiting for the crop to be harvested so that it may be sold and they could have money again. So there was such a time, extreme temperature, very little in their pockets, and the time of anticipation of getting those crops harvested and getting a profit out of those. In such an end, on top of that, the Muslims had constantly been under threat from kuffar and under different wars for the past 8 years, the Quraysh of Makkah and the other Yahud and whatnot. But the Prophet ﷺ had decided that we are going to go, and because it was such a case, and they knew that it was a very well trained army, because these people were not like common fighters of Arab. This was a trained, organized, disciplined army of the Romans. And the Prophet ﷺ, looking at that and getting news of their huge army, sent an open call to everybody in Medina that they have to accompany in this jihad. Tabuk, there's a special thing about this expedition, that it was the command of the Prophet ﷺ that every able man has to go. When the Prophet of the time or the commander of the country gives this kind of an open call to everyone in the country, it becomes a farz-e-ain. It becomes an absolute farz on every single person that they have to go and fight. Otherwise, it is a farz-e-kifaya that the military or the army of that country or those people who have the responsibility of defending, they will fight. If they are not able to fight or they are not able to hold the enemy, then others, the commoners, have to join. But if the call is general, then everybody has to join. It becomes a farz for them. So it became a farz for every single one to join. Now, there was several groups of people who reacted to this call in different manners. The first and the foremost, the Sahaba with perfect faith, the old, the steadfast, the strong Sahaba, they came and they were ready right away. That, Ya Rasulullah, upon your call we are going to go. Then there was some Sahaba who took some time, but they listened to the Prophet ﷺ. Because the situation was so extreme, it took them a little bit, but they also came and said that we are going to go upon the command of the Prophet ﷺ. Although the hardship, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself has mentioned that it was, their feet were a little trembling, but they still came. So these are, Allah is happy with them, all of them. These are the true Sahaba of Allah, of the Prophet ﷺ, who listened to the Prophet ﷺ. Then there was people who had a real genuine excuse. For example, sick people. For example, weak people. These people came and told the Prophet ﷺ their excuses, and they were also true Muslims. They were allowed that they can stay back. Then there was yet another small group of Sahaba who did not have an excuse, but only because of their procrastination, or they kept on thinking that this is nothing for us, we are almost ready for going to battle and we'll just prepare for the battle the next day, the next day, the next day. They kept on delaying it until the army departed and they were not able to join the army. But they were true Sahaba, they were true Muslims, true believers, but because of this procrastination they were not able to they did not join the army. Then there was the people who did not have a real excuse, but they came to the Prophet ﷺ and lied. And these were the munafiqeen, that we have such and such problem. The Prophet ﷺ was so merciful that the Prophet ﷺ took their excuse on their word of mouth, on the face of it, and gave them respite that you are allowed not to go if you don't want to go. But Allah knew what was in their heart, and Allah has very lovingly addressed the Prophet ﷺ that why did you listen to them so quickly? Why did you take their word? Anyway, this will come tomorrow. But anyway, so this is how the Muslim army gathered and started to march towards Tabuk. And it was when the Prophet ﷺ had called for everyone, the end result was that most of the Muslims went. And a total army of 30,000 Sahaba was with the Prophet ﷺ. Listening to this, getting the news of 30,000 people approaching towards Tabuk, Heracles decided not to come to the fight. They did not fight. The Prophet ﷺ stayed there for a few days, and then when there was no competition, there was no battle, the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims came back. But the distinguishing point, this was clear, that the munafiqeen became clear, that they gave false excuses and they did not come. So this is how Tabuk happened. So this ayah that we are reading today, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu مَا لَكُمْ إِذَا قِيلَ لَكُمْ انْفِرُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. It is about the true Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ, those kinds that were a little faltering, a little hesitant, or those who did not have a real excuse but they kept on procrastinating. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, those people who have believed, ma lakum idha qila lakum unfiru fi sabilillahi thaqaltum min al-ard. What is wrong with you that when it is said to you, come out in the way of Allah, you turn heavy and cling to, as if cling to the ground? Araditum bil hayati dunya min al-akhirah. Now Allah is presenting the diagnosis, which is in a way of question, that have you become happy with the worldly life instead of the hereafter? And this ulama have written, in fact the Prophet ﷺ has said that hubbud dunya ra'su kulli khati'ah. This is at the root of all the sins, all the disobedience. Hubbud dunya, the love of the world. You love the world more and care about your present more than your future, which is the hereafter. That is at the root of all sins. You are concerned about this worldly hayat, this worldly life, and you are compromising on your hereafter. Is that what it is? Now the treatment. فَمَا مَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا فِي الْآخِرَةِ إِلَّا قَلِيلٌ. Know it fully well that whatever enjoyment of this worldly life you can achieve is all trivial, all not worthy in comparison with the hereafter. It's nothing but very trivial, very light, nothing meaningless. So this is in a particular background, but this applies to everyone. Whenever there is a command of Allah, whenever you know something is right, you have to do it, and you have to always make a choice. Do I want to choose this worldly life for myself, or do I want to prefer my akhirah over this world? For myself, for in all aspects of my life, all decisions of my life that I'm going to make, this is the question that we have to ask. What am I preferring? Am I preferring this world and the progress and the comfort of this world, the luxuries of this world, or am I giving preference to the command of Allah and giving more importance to the hereafter? And the treatment of this disease of the love of the world is to constantly remind yourself, to train yourself to believe and realize that this world is very temporary. The success of this world is very temporary. If I become a successful person in this world but become a failure in the hereafter, I am the real failure, I am the real loser. How much time? 12 minutes. إلا تنفروا يعذبكم عذابا أليما ويستبدل قوما غيركم ولا تضروه شيئا. If you do not leave in the way of Allah, march forward in the path of Allah, Allah will يعذبكم عذابا أليما. He will punish you with a painful punishment. وَيَسْتَبْدِلْ قَوْمًا غَيْرَكُمْ. Allah is not dependent on you. Allah will replace you with another nation. وَلَا تَضُرُّوهُ شَيْئًا. You will not be able to harm Allah in any manner. So don't think if you are a good person, or if you are helping the Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or helping a good cause in our case in any manner, don't think that you are the only one. Never think that Allah or the good cause is dependent on you. Even if you are the key central person, Allah is not dependent on you. If Allah has to do something, Allah will replace you with others, and that thing which Allah has decided will happen, it will happen. Wallahu ala kulli shayin qadir. And that is because Allah is powerful over everything. Illa tansuruhu. If you do not help, strengthen the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, faqad nasarahu Allah. Then Allah, it makes no difference to the Prophet, because Allah has already helped him. إِذْ أَخْرَجَهُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. When the people of kufr, they pushed him away, pushed him out. ثاني اثنين إذ هما في الغير. He was the second of the two, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The two people who were in the cave, في الغار إذ هما في الغار, as when they were in the cave, what kind of army did they have? What kind of army? Were you there to support the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he was being pushed away out of his home city and by his people? No, he was very alone. Only one other person. إذ يقول لصاحبه. He was saying to his Sahabi. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calling Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh as the true. Allah is testifying in the words of Quran. Wahi is testifying to the status of Sahabiyat of the Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh. إِذْ يَقُولُ لِصَاحِبِهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was saying to the Prophet of Allah was saying to his companion, لَا تَحْزَنْ. Do not grieve. إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَنَا. Allah is surely with the both of us. Allah is with both of us. فَأَنزَلَ اللَّهُ سَكِينَتَهُ عَلَيْهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down tranquility. وَأَيَّدَهُ بِجُنُودٍ لَمْ تَرَوْهَا. And supported him with troops that you were not able to see. So you think that you are an army that is going to help the Prophet. If you are not going to help the Prophet, Allah is there to help him. Allah will help him even with armies that you can't even see. وَجَعَلَ كَلِمَةَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا السُّفْلَى. And the word of the disbelievers was rendered humiliated. So it was whatever they're trying to do, their best effort was not to let the Muslims and the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam out of that area alive. What happened? All of that became inferior, did not work out. وَكَلِمَةُ اللَّهِ هِيَ الْعُلْيَا. The word of Allah is the uppermost. That is what happens. Wallahu Azizun Hakim. Allah is the one who is the mightiest and the wisest. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us the people of the Quran. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين آمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.